How would you feel if the government confiscated your money if you disobeyed them? What if they tracked your every movement, location, and your spending decisions at all times, and forced you to adhere to them by restricting what you can and cannot buy? What if your digital money's operating system was hacked, draining you of all your money? And what if one day you woke up and noticed your savings got reduced without your consent? These are just a few grim realities if the government had total control of your money. Unfortunately, they are now developing a tool that will help them do exactly that, which would inevitably suppress your financial freedom. That tool is central bank digital currency, or CBDC, which is the digital version of a country's fiat currency issued and backed by the central bank. Instead of printing physical money, the central bank issues electronic coins or accounts backed by the full faith and credit of the government.
I'm not convinced.
So why have CBDCs? Proponents argue that they have the potential to offer faster and cheaper payment processing, let more people have access to financial services, lower the cost of using banks, and make it easier for the government to control the money and the economy. Then why are so many people against the idea of CBDCs? In short, CBDCs will lead to absolute government control. But to answer that question better, we can look to Nigeria as it acts as a cautionary tale. Last year, the Nigerian central bank issued its own CBDC called the e-Naira. The Nigerian government initially tried to encourage use through modest measures, but the efforts proved to be ineffective. They then took more drastic measures, limiting daily cash withdrawals to $45. To make matters worse, the Nigerian government changed the design of the paper currency during this time. So not only are citizens limited in how much they can withdraw, but the commercial banks also don't have the cash to give out because many are still waiting for the newly designed cash to arrive. This sparked violent protests, leading to the destruction of banks and vandalized structures in the city of Udu.
Bureaucratic incompetence.
The adoption of CBDCs in Nigeria has failed spectacularly, where less than 0.5% of Nigerians have used the CBDC. To put that number into perspective, more than 50% of Nigerians have used cryptocurrencies. The country's experience strongly suggests the average citizen understands that CBDCs present a substantial risk to financial freedom while providing no unique benefit.
People are stupid, but they're not that stupid.
We also got a glimpse into the drastic measures a government can take to oppress opposing opinions in another country. Enter Canada, where a group of truckers called the Freedom Convoy organized a peaceful protest in February 2022 against COVID-19 restrictions and vaccine mandates. The protest involved a convoy of trucks that drove across the country to Ottawa, the capital city, to demand changes to the government's pandemic policies. As the protests gained momentum, reports emerged that some of the organizers and participants had their bank accounts frozen by their financial institutions. The reason for the freezing of bank accounts was a result of President Justin Trudeau imposing the Emergency Act. The protest was over once people couldn't access their money, subsequently silencing their voice. This would be much easier and efficient to implement if the government had access to a CBDC.
This isn't freedom. This is fear.
Some central banks are still exploring the use of CBDCs, while others, like Nigeria, have already issued them. The US is currently sitting on the sidelines, but President Joe Biden issued an executive order last year to explore a US central bank digital currency. The US Federal Reserve and its chairman, Jerome Powell, who is arguably the most powerful individual when it comes to the US dollar, are now analyzing the costs and benefits of issuing a digital dollar.
We have not decided to do it.
However, many US politicians are sounding the alarm around CBDC. Texas Senator Ted Cruz is a huge proponent against CBDCs. He's recently put forward a legislation to prohibit the Fed from creating a CBDC.
Look, I'm very concerned about the risk of a CBDC.
And he's not the only one. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also recently proposed a ban on CBDC from the Fed.
Any way they can get into society to exercise their agenda, they will do it. So what the central bank digital currency is all about is surveilling Americans and controlling behavior of Americans.
He calls it the Big Brother's digital dollar, referring to the fictional character Big Brother, a symbol of the totalitarian regime that surveils its citizen in the hit novel 1984 by George Orwell. Even one of the board members of the Federal Reserve, Christopher Waller, is openly opposed to the idea, saying that nobody has yet made a convincing case that there's a problem that a digital dollar is uniquely able to solve. Former NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden calls the CBDCs the crypto-fascist currency that could casually annihilate savings.
You're a fascist pig.
But do you know which superpower does control and surveil its people and is already adopting the CBDC?
China. 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 China.
China.
That's right. America's biggest rival, China, is at the forefront of adopting a national digital currency and will be the first major economy to do so. China's central bank announced it would eventually phase out physical cash and coins in favor of the digital yuan, also known as the ECNY, with its first CBDC trial launching in April of 2020. China is already on the verge of becoming a cashless society, but the vast majority of electronic transactions happen on privately owned apps like Alipay and WeChat Pay, which is outside of the immediate purview of the state. An official yuan would change that, giving Beijing an unprecedented amount of information about what people are spending their money on and where. While there is no set date for a national rollout, China continues to extend the trial to bigger and more populous provinces.
That's not good.
Their most recent push in May was their most ambitious one yet, paying all public sector workers in the eastern Chinese city of Jiangsu entirely in the digital yuan. Government employees, as well as staff at state-owned companies and public institutions such as schools, hospitals, libraries, research institutes, and media organizations in the city will be forced to take their salaries in the CBDC.
We see China moving forward with the intention of using a CBDC to destroy all the value of Bitcoin, to destroy anonymity, to destroy decentralization.
CBDCs will lead to increased surveillance, censorship, and restrictions on individual financial freedoms. So how do you protect yourself? The answer is
Bitcoin.
This is a fantastic fundamental hedge and store of value against autocratic regimes and banking infrastructure that we know is corrosive to how the world needs to work properly.
Bitcoin is often considered a form of freedom currency because it operates independently of traditional banking systems and government control. It is a decentralized digital currency, which means that it is not controlled by any single entity or government. Instead, it operates on a peer-to-peer network and is managed by a decentralized community of users. Its fixed supply of 21 million coins is also enticing as a store of value, as central banks around the world keep printing absurd amounts of money and further devaluing their currencies. Get yourself some Bitcoin before the price goes to
$700 billion and $1.3 trillion.
But in all seriousness, Bitcoin is not only a tool to obtain your financial freedom, it also has immense asymmetric upside. Wall Street titan Cathie Woods, founder and CEO of ARK Invest, famously predicts that Bitcoin could hit $1.5 million per coin by 2030. Chamath Palihapitiya, a billionaire investor and early senior executive at Facebook, also predicts that Bitcoin is going to be
$1 million a coin.
One safe and secure way to buy Bitcoin is through a world-leading crypto exchange, Bitget. Bitget has a money service business license in the US and Canada, and licenses in Australia and Singapore, so you can trade Bitcoin with a peace of mind. You can use the link in my description to get a trading bonus of $100 when you put in $1,000 to trade futures. You also support this channel when you join by clicking the link, so thank you. Also, 98% of you watching have not subscribed, and my goal is to get it down to 50%. So I'd really appreciate it if you can help me achieve that. Do you think CBDCs are good or bad for society? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next journey.